once you're close enough to AI, you realize it's really just a fancy algorithm, right? It's like, you've got an algorithm, and AI is really, you've got a better algorithm that accepted some training and is now outputting, really interesting and useful responses. It's almost evolutionary from my perspective, like an evolution instead of a revolution, where the Maverick V1 DEX has an algorithm that lets LPs move their liquidity according to price. And it's a fairly simple algorithm that just looking at time-weighted average past price. One way to have it is literally have a whole bunch of knobs exposed, a whole bunch of parameters exposed that define how the liquidity moves. Another way to do it is to train an algorithm, train an AI model, a machine learning model, where you take past data and you've trained that model with basically how it responds to stimulus from prices and whatever stimulus you want to provide, so you don't have to turn the knobs manually or have this external system turning the knobs. It's smart enough to turn the knobs itself.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights an exclusive first look at the upcoming launch of Maverick V2. In this episode, we cover how Maverick V2 offers a next-generation liquidity operating system with powerful turnkey solutions such as their veToken factory, directional fees, dynamic fees, and their new AI-DEX customizable pool logic. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge Podcast possible. Introducing Flat Money, the first decentralized delta-neutral flatcoin built on Base with sustainable yield that's completely untethered from legacy finance. Because DeFi needs an uncensorable based unit of currency. You can mint unit with RETH, which is held in the protocol's shared liquidity pool, where it's borrowed by leveraged traders. As a leveraged trader, you can deposit your margin collateral and go long on RETH. If you're trading in the perpetual futures market, you'll pay unit holders to open leverage positions. If you're holding unit, you'll earn yield from liquidations, borrow rate, and trading fees. Preserve your purchasing power and offset your exposure to crypto market volatility. Learn more at flat.money. Power up your portfolio by borrowing, lending, and multiplying your favorite assets, made safe and easy by the industry-leading automation tools at SUMMER.FI. SUMMER.FI offers a curated DeFi experience to access the highest quality protocols and strategies. Discover new earn strategies for your portfolio in a user-friendly app designed to filter based on the tokens you hold, the networks you transact on, the protocols you trust, and the highest available yields. Learn more today at SUMMER.FI, the best place to borrow and earn in DeFi. Tired of hopping between tabs, searching for new tokens before the hype catches on? Try MATCHA.XYZ, the DEX aggregator from 0x. MATCHA connects hundreds of DEXs so you can trade millions of tokens and find fresh new drops. MATCHA works out the best route to save you money on every trade. Swaps are free, and MATCHA has everything you need to trade on-chain. Gasless swaps, limit orders, and cross-chain, all in one place. Search Trade Done at MATCHA.XYZ.
Introducing the MANTLE Liquid Staking Protocol, MANTLE LSP, a permissionless, non-custodial ETH liquid staking protocol deployed on Ethereum L1 and governed by MANTLE. With MANTLE LSP, users can stake ETH to instantly receive METH, earn yield and accumulate rewards the longer you stake. METH is the value accumulating receipt token that will give you access to expanded yield opportunities. Stake and watch your yield grow with MANTLE LSP.
It all started so simply with CryptoKitties and Maker on Ethereum, but quickly became complex with more applications and many chains. Today, everyone agrees UX issues are the biggest blocker standing in the way of crypto adoption. Introducing Avocado. Multi-chain UX redesigned from the ground up. The first wallet to abstract networks, accounts, and gas. One gas tank to pay transaction fees on all chains in USDC. And native access to INSTADAPP's powerful, custom DeFi strategies. Avocado, one wallet to rule all chains.
All right, let's introduce Bob Baxley, a core contributor of Maverick Protocol. Bob, welcome back to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be talking about V2 here today.
So we're recording this in advance of Maverick V2 launching, and we're just really excited to have you back, Bob. Maverick V1 was I think we described it as like a next generation protocol for AMMs. There was a lot of refinements to improve capital efficiency. This time around, it feels like you've created this whole new liquidity operating system. It is a protocol that I think should sit on your shortlist for launching any token. It gives you a lot of very powerful turnkey solutions for doing things like creating a veToken or setting more refined controls on AMM pools. So with that said, Bob, can you give us a recap of V1 just to level set before we talk more about the improvements, the innovations behind Maverick V2?
So the Maverick protocol V1 was a pure AMM contract. And the idea is it gave users, LPs specifically, the ability to concentrate their liquidity in any distribution they wanted. So, one of the things is you're LPing in order to optimize your returns, or if you're a protocol and you want to optimize depth at a certain price, that was hard to do, still is hard to do in other DEXs, but Maverick, that's kind of native. You can define the distribution, whether it's a flat distribution, like you might see in Uniswap V3, or it's a Gaussian distribution, exponential distribution, some sort of ramp distribution. All these things are possible. And then the other innovation that V1 brought was the ability to have LPs select positions that actually moved with price. So imagine you were LPing a stable coin pair where you provided liquidity in, say, USDC and USDT. That price is moving a few basis points every hour. There's a little bit of volatility. And if you want to maximize your fees, you'd like to be able to follow that price. And so the biggest LPs in the world have kind of off-chain mechanisms to do restaking of their liquidity to follow prices. And we would try to kind of democratize that so anybody could do that. So the AMM smart contract in Maverick V1 natively does liquidity movement based on certain price conditions. And those price conditions you can configure as an LP when you create a pool. So the idea is it provides a lot of capital efficiency, kind of that maximizes the capital efficiency, which is the amount of volume that a certain amount of liquidity in a pool sees. And capital efficiency is great for LPs because that's proportional to fees. So that's the innovation that L1 brought. That Maverick V1 brought.
Let's maybe just get right into V2. I think like most of my knowledge of what V2 is going to be came from your Twitter account. It's your pinned tweet right now at the Maverick kind of mothership account. One of the first things on that list is you're going to be introducing the lowest gas fees of any concentrated AMM. I think like for all of this, I want to like break down the technical new implementation with V2 and then try to like get into like, why does this matter? Like, what does that actually mean for a trader, a user? How does this improve the UI UX for a user? So yeah, let's just start with this. What does the lowest gas fees mean for users?
So you care about that as an LP. So a swapper cares about it because they get lower fees. That's pretty obvious. And then LPs care about it a ton because it means they're going to get more trade flow. So what happens, especially on mainnet where transactions are really expensive. Say you want to swap 100 USDC. That swap fee might cost $5. So it's not. So that when you make a pool in any DEX, there's some fee that goes to the LPs, and that for a stable pair might be at 1 basis point. So a $100 swap would only cost you 10 cents in pool fee, but it costs you $5 in transaction fee. And so if you are a swapper, you're going to go look for the DEX with the lowest transaction fees if you've got kind of lowish size trades. It's only like giant trades or really low gas L2s where, if you're doing a smaller swap, you don't so much care about the gas fee, that the actual pool fee takes over. So all that is to say is individual swappers might be hunting for this, but really how it works is you've got aggregators. You've got Paraswap and 1inch and Nodos and 0x and all these folks, OpenOcean, that work with DEXs, and they're basically looking to see which DEX has the cheapest price net of fees in the pool and net of transaction fees. So by having a smart contract that can make a swap for really low transaction fee, you end up getting a lot of flow from these aggregators. And those aggregators, the users of those aggregators don't necessarily care which DEX they're interacting with. They just want the best swap. So that's a long way of getting around to, if you have the lowest transaction fee, it means that the LPs in those pools will get the most trade flow, and trade flow equals trade fees for those LPs. So really that's kind of this overhead that if you can make that the lowest, then you'll get all these trade fees for your LPs. So it's super important to have low gas so you get lots of transactions and lots of transaction fees for LPs.
Bob, so another feature of V2 that we were excited to review is what you refer to as programmable pools. And it seems like there's a bunch of features there that are then unlocked for LPs and traders. One that is very familiar is single-sided LPs. So I guess we'll no longer have to prepare the LP, depending on the type of LP you were preparing, though, in Maverick. Being able to deposit single-sided is fantastic. Can you talk, though, more about directional fees, dynamic fees, the KYC pools, and then, of course, what do you mean by AI-DEX?
Yeah, we're super excited about programmable pools. So the idea is that you can use the core AMM logic to do the swaps, but then you can have an intermediate layer of logic that you deploy as a smart contract. So you could be a protocol that built on top of Maverick. You could be an LP. You could build this logic yourself. We expect communities. There's already several folks who are working on building various versions of programmable pools for different use cases. So as you said, some of the use cases are simple things like being able to stake one side and have the swap happen within the smart contract layer in the programmable pool. Other features are things like being able to change the fee in the pool dynamically as new transactions come in, or based on oracles, or based on any condition you want, really. Another interesting feature is KYC pools. So for RWAs, for real-world asset tokens, often the issuers of those tokens want to make sure that everybody trading those tokens is KYC'd. And that's pretty complicated, but what it means is those tokens don't end up in un-KYC DEXs. And so you can build a programmable pool where the kind of logic layer in between the users in the pool does this KYC operation, and you've got kind of infinite flexibility there. And then lastly, so this AI-DEX narrative, I think we're pretty excited about the prospect of, as swaps come in, you can have some model, and it's probably a simple model since executing on chain. Could be like a random forest, some sort of tree model, a very simple neural network that is tuning parameters of the pool. So it could be tuning the fee in the pool based on inputs from on-chain, basically. So, so again, if we want to optimize fees, one way to do it is just have the programmable pool go ask an oracle, what should the fee be? But that's non-atomic, because that kind of the oracle isn't in the loop with the transaction. So things could happen within the transaction the oracle will have a hard time keeping track of. If you want to do some sort of atomic AI during the transaction, so I send a swap in, the pool actually can go pull other DEXs, can go pull other pools, see how deep they are, see what their prices are, use all that information in aggregate to set the swap fee for this incoming swap that's coming to the pool. So there's all kinds of really cool stuff that can come out of that. I think another use case that we heard from some folks was liquidation use cases. It makes it a lot easier to let people do sort of leveraged LPing if you could have this programmable layer in between that does the liquidation kind of seamlessly. So yeah, we're excited to see what the community builds around these programmable pools for sure.
There's so much in there, but a few things that I think deserve us to kind of go a bit deeper on is the KYC pools. And then definitely I have some more questions about the AI stuff too. But the KYC thing's really interesting. I personally haven't seen a lot of this out there. I'm curious, kind of like the appetite for it right now. And like, could you imagine like somebody like a BlackRock at some point coming in and using these KYC pools, or I guess like another big TradFi institution? Maybe just tell us like what you see forming with these KYC pools and where we are in that kind of growth phase.
Yeah, I think if you want to swap KYC assets, RWA assets, or RWAs, there's not a lot of options, right? You don't have all the flexibility that sort of Maverick can offer. And so, you end up swapping them on centralized exchanges and these sorts of things. I think there's a world where the world is going is, you'll just have more people KYCing essentially. So that community, that pool of people who are KYC'd and can interact with these tokens gets big enough that it makes sense to go do decentralized things like staking those on DEXs and getting all the other benefits of that. You start to get the benefits of being able to lend to, use them as collateral more seamlessly and in a more decentralized way. You get to do all those sorts of things.
One other quick follow-up on the KYC stuff. Like, I have no idea how that UI UX is going to look. Just curious how you kind of like gatekeep and control that as like, I guess a protocol that's trying to be somewhat decentralized. That just seems like an interesting, maybe juggling act.
Definitely. So I think the Maverick protocol wouldn't be involved in this really at all. So all that Maverick provides is smart contracts to let other people build KYC kind of rule books for themselves. And so there's a number of protocols that do that. I'm unfortunately blanking on their names, but there's a whole bunch of people that have various KYC solutions already. And so I think those folks can go build programmable pools in Maverick where they've integrated their specific sort of KYC protocol and mechanisms, and there's some signing of messages involved. They can implement that as part of the pools on top of this. So it's not something that, like the Maverick protocol folks would have to administer.
For all the tooling that you've described here, is there a fee that would be charged that would then like kick back to VMAV holders, or is that all like TBD with like a governance vote in the future? What are your thoughts there?
There's no so the pool and the protocol has a mechanism to define a fee, a protocol fee that could then be tracked, taken as a portion of all the trade fees and redistributed, kind of as the community sees fit. Right now that fee is zero. So yeah, that's probably a long way off and sort of something subject to governance.
I want to get a little back to the AI-DEX, because again, when I was reading that first tweet about V2, it was kind of introduced as the first AI-DEX. And I think that's like a really interesting, like buzzwordy thing. And it gets people excited, including myself. But just kind of curious to like, kind of like the internal AI competency on the Maverick team. Like I seem to remember, I think maybe even yourself has a bit of an AI background. And I think some other people on the Maverick team, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe just give us like a bit of the recap of credentials, like where this is coming from, and maybe why the kind of inspiration to lean into AI. And just, I would just also just love to pick your brain. Like, do you think the whole AI, crypto AI DeFi thing is like inevitable?
Yeah, so I'm a former academic. So I was at Georgia Tech doing AI and signal processing and information theory. And I was actually, before I got into crypto, deep into crypto, I was a kind of a AI competition junkie. So I would do, Google had a TensorFlow speech recognition competition. I got 6 out of 1,300 teams. And DARPA, which is a big defense organization, had some AI competitions around designing bots that could operate wirelessly over radio frequency spectrum. And my team and I, we won that competition 2 different times. So yeah, I've done a lot of AI stuff over the years and train models and all these sorts of things. And yeah, the team's got a couple of PhDs on it who've done this sort of thing as well. So yeah, I think we're pretty bought into that space. Have done a lot of things in AI over the years. And yeah, I think, I don't want to get too buzzwordy, right? I once you're close enough to AI, you realize it's really just a fancy algorithm, right? It's like, you've got an algorithm, and AI is really, you've got a better algorithm that accepted some training and is now outputting, really interesting and useful responses. So I may be underselling it, but it's almost evolutionary from my perspective, like an evolution instead of a revolution, where the Maverick V1 DEX has an algorithm that lets LPs move their liquidity according to price. And it's a fairly simple algorithm that just looking at time-weighted average past price. You can imagine, folks, we had all kinds of folks tell us, we'd like more sophisticated knobs that we can turn around how that liquidity moves. And so, one way to have it is literally have a whole bunch of knobs exposed, a whole bunch of parameters exposed that define how the liquidity moves. Another way to do it is to train an algorithm, train an AI model, a machine learning model, where you take past data and you've trained that model with basically how it responds to stimulus from prices and, whatever stimulus you want to provide. So you don't have to turn the knobs manually or have this external system turning the knobs. It's smart enough to turn the knobs itself. So that's how I see that going. I think to think that we're not going to get to an age where we've got more sophisticated liquidity movement, more sophisticated algorithms under the hood is crazy. Of course, we're going to have that. And so this is just an evolution of what we've already done at Maverick is how we see it.
And then just a quick follow-up to that, because that's how Maverick is dealing with it. But then I'm curious, I see a world, and a lot of people are talking about this, where the users maybe aren't as much human. They could be AI agents. So kind of curious, if you're already catering the protocol to be dealing with users that are AI agents rather than human users, and if they'll be less inclined, obviously, less driven by a nice front end, but more likely the back end, and just how you're thinking about that kind of paradigm that we might be moving into as well.
I think we're already there. I think that's one of the super fascinating things about Web3 to me and DeFi is in TradFi, you have algorithms competing each other for sure. But the interfaces are closed off. It's only the giant firms kind of talking to each other over high frequency interfaces and whatnot that are super expensive to get into. What's amazing about DeFi is I meet, 18-year-old dudes, in college who are messing with MEV bots. And they found some little tweak where they've got some edge, and they're making a little bit of money out of that. And what's cool is you've got millions, hundreds of thousands of people doing that sort of thing, could build their own infrastructure to interact with smart contracts, and the barrier to entry for them to do that is just super low. That's one of the amazing things. It is truly decentralized and permissionless. So I think we're already in that world where you've got bots kind of competing, and part of that is the solver infrastructure we see. So Gen 1 aggregators where you have folks that are just check each DEX, see who has the best price. But now we've got these kind of intent-based trading systems. And under the hood for intent-based trading systems are super sophisticated users doing mostly off-chain calculations to decide how they're going to settle this giant bundle of kind of intents through the various DEXs. So obviously that's super, super sophisticated. And it requires people to already be building bots, agents, essentially, to compete against each other in these DEXs. And that's where we think that having some on-chain smarts, some more sophisticated on-chain mechanisms lets LPs better monetize the capital they're putting up.
Yeah, it makes sense. The programmability that is built into Maverick V2, it mirrors where the puck is going. The future is a lot more on-chain bot-enabled applications. And I think AI agents has been a favorite use case of ours where we're this is really cool. The average person will clearly benefit from access to an interface, an app that is powered by some decentralized network of AI agents. And the end result of that is that any user has just a simpler onboarding user experience when they're using DeFi. It kind of overcomes all the barriers to entry. We're used to, okay, now I created the LP token, now I'm going to go stake it here, and I got to then take that and restake this and do that. There's so many steps that gives all of us edge. And as much as I think we've enjoyed that at times, I know the future to onboarding more people to DeFi is you have to make it that much simpler. So anyways, this is interestingly the programmable type of infrastructure that I think we need for, this future interface.
I think another point to make is that it's actually good for the users. You end up getting the best prices. So some people think that, all these bots doing arbitrage is just sucking life out of the life out of the ecosystem, but it's great for normal users because it means you're getting the best prices. You get these really thick markets, you get a whole bunch of people competing, and the arbitrage that they're competing for is being ground down to dust because you've got all these competitors. Again, you contrast that with TradFi where there's silos, there's giant, regulatory and other barriers in place to keep kind of free flowing markets from happening. And we don't have that in DeFi. So we have this ability where anybody can interact. And it's great for the users.
Bob, another feature that caught my eye is this any token veFactory. So it seems that any protocol would be able to then create a veToken. And anyways, can you expand upon that? What are the tools, the turnkey solutions out of the box with Maverick V2?
Sure. So, you said at the top, we think about Maverick V2 as a liquidity operating system. And so I think about a target user as a protocol wanting to make a new token. I think, I don't know how close you guys are into the Farcaster world, but like WAGMI Fair Launch is getting a ton of traction there. People make meme coins and they've got a contract that will launch the meme coins as LP liquidity in a pool. And then people are sure that the users, the builders of the meme coin aren't going to rug the meme coin. So that's like a little bit of the flywheel, right? But you can imagine the other pieces you want if you go launch a token. You want some mechanism to have stickier users. So you wanted some way to encourage users to stick around. I think Curve with their VE model did a great job of that. GMX has got a really interesting model there. So there's a few models floating around. Maverick, we have our own model, and I can talk about that maybe in a second. But the factory concept is we realize that it's not that Mav just needs their own model. That model can actually be reused by any protocol. That was kind of the insight, and I think that's what's really unique about this veFactory, is that all of the flywheel effects, all the ability to attract users who are sticky and users who want to stake the token and get some incentives, whether it's a protocol fee or some cut of other fees, there needs to be mechanisms where any protocol can just turnkey deploy all those things on top of deploying pools and then have this flywheel going for themselves. So you said it exactly right. There's some smart contracts in Maverick V2 that let anybody permissionlessly deploy a VE token on top of any token. And there's no ownership of the token. So it's not as if DeFi Dad deploys the token, he's now the owner of the token. The mechanisms are built in such a way that there is no ownership. There's no kind of authority. Nobody has to make any decisions. There's no knobs to turn after you deploy it. So you could deploy, any token, really, VE, any token you want. And then now you've got a mechanism where people can stake that token. You've got a mechanism to reward people who've staked the token. You've got a mechanism to incentivize pools with the base token of the VE, and then encourage or give people a boost if they choose to extract their incentives and then relock them in the VE token. So some of that is Curve-like, but the basic idea is you can do that with any token. So we've had a bunch of protocols, interact with the MAP community saying they'd love to leverage this for what they're doing. And I think if you think about giant protocols that already have some of this infrastructure built out, that's maybe not the sweet spot. I think the sweet spot is you've got a new token and you want to go bootstrap liquidity for your token. You want to bootstrap this next layer of governance, stickiness, and of incentives. So that's what the factory lets you do.
Bob, could you just maybe walk us through another example? Because we were talking offline and it really clicked for me, this veFactory model. And I think the one that you did was something in relation to Farcaster and a meme coin or something like that. But yeah, I think if you could just kind of walk us through that again, that really seemed to hammer it home for me.
So imagine you make a meme coin. Let's just call it XYZ coin. So you've minted XYZ coin. And so this WAGMI Fair Launch thing on Farcaster, they let you mint the coin, take the entire supply of the coin and put it in a liquidity pool. They use a Uniswap. And now you know that liquidity is always locked there. And so if you want that coin, you can swap with the pool and get some of the coin out. But that's it. That's the entire ecosystem. There's no way to take the fees from the pool and redistribute them. There's no utility for this meme coin, this XYZ token afterwards. So with Maverick V2, you do get all this kind of second level infrastructure. So at the very lowest level, you get some interesting AMM things. You get to shape the liquidity of the base pool. You get to do directional fees, so you can make it more expensive to sell the token than buy the token. So you've got that flexibility, just the core AMM level. But then the next level up, imagine the community for this token wants to pair with some other token. There's a new stable coin. Let's call it stable token. And so now XYZ token and stable token communities are talking together. They want to build a pool together. They see mutual benefit in that. And they want to incentivize LPs to bring liquidity to that pool. So in Maverick, there's this boosted position concept where you can add incentives to exactly that sort of thing. You can add incentives to a certain distribution of liquidity. And whoever stakes that gets a portion of that incentives. So Maverick kind of enables that. But then the next layer is you actually want the folks, you're going to incentivize them with XYZ token, and you want that XYZ token that you've incentivized with to be restaked in the VE loop. so that these users are sticky and that they can stay invested in this loop. And you want the fees from that pool to be redistributed to them, based on how long they've locked or these sorts of things. So with the veFactory, you've got kind of all that built in. All that's just completely turnkey, and somebody through one click could basically, it's kind of this fair launch thing supercharged, because you get the next layer of elements on top of it.
DeFi enables a whole new world of trading and yield opportunities. Sometimes we all wish we had a little bit bigger of a budget so we can make the most out of it. That's why we created Blueberry. Blueberry lets you access the best opportunities on Ethereum all in one easy-to-use terminal. You can access 5x, 10x, or even 20x your money in one click, more than any other lending market, so you can maximize your earnings. Only on Blueberry.
Maybe just kind of touch base too on this whole Maverick veFlywheel, because you're already doing the VE model, but what are you adding, or what will be different to the VE model with I guess the V2 launch of Maverick?
So a couple of things. I think the classic VE model is a protocol, has some governance, repository of tokens that they emit somehow to VE holders, or they let VE holders vote. The curve model is VE holders get to vote on pools, and then based on how much vote a pool gets is how much VE gets emitted to the LPs in that pool. We don't think that's super sustainable, because it means you will be emitting forever, and whoever accumulates a big VE balance kind of upfront will basically be able to collect in perpetuity new token emissions without having to do adding any new utility. So the big difference in the Maverick VE model that's also replicated as part of the veFactory is there's still a mechanism where rewards can be sent to VE holders. So that exists, and those rewards can be sent in any token you want, which is pretty cool. But the main mechanism for incentives is actually matching, where so in Maverick V1, we see boosted positions. Some new protocol token will come and say, or two protocol tokens will come together and say, I want to incentivize this pool. Will your treasury co-incentivize with me? And so that's really the model that Maverick has more streamlined, where the emissions of MAV or of any of these VE tokens are predicated on somebody matching the incentives. So you don't just get to collect infinite emissions or emissions forever just by having an early VE allocation. You actually have to continue to bring incentives to the protocol. And so that works for Maverick, but it also works in this veFactory for other protocols. So the idea is, there's not emissions unless there's new money in to incentivize new users in the ecosystem.
Bob, you mentioned the term directional fees earlier. I didn't quite catch that, but maybe you can just expand on what that means and what that means to end users as well.
So the classic AMM design is a pool, and the pool has a fee. And the users get to set the fee in Maverick V1, but in every DEX until Maverick V2, the fee is the same no matter which direction you're swapping. So if you've got a pool that's got ETH and USDC in it, the fee may be 10 basis points. So whether I'm coming as a swapper buying ETH or selling ETH and getting buying USDC, I'm paying 10 basis points. And that may be fine. There's use cases for that. That's still possible in Maverick V2. But what we realize is there are all kinds of really interesting use cases if you can actually set the fee or make the fee different depending on the direction of swap. And so what are the use cases? So one use case is this liquidity operating system. Say you've made a meme coin. You can actually make it so that the sell fee for the meme coin is way higher than the buy fee. So you could create a lot of sell friction. That's one. You could be an LP that's not agnostic. So when the fee is the same in both directions, you're essentially agnostic to what you hold, right? But if you're an LP and you're in a USDC ETH pool and you want to hold ETH more, you can actually set the fee so that when you sell ETH, that fee is higher. And so that creates a really interesting dynamic. And it means that you're going to sell less ETH. If you take that to the extreme, you can do really cool kind of dollar cost average selling things. So because Maverick can let you create a pool of any distribution you want, you could say set the fee for selling ETH super high, set it to be 50% or something, which means you're not going to sell any ETH. And you create this pool that's basically all USDC, and you've got a whole price range, a whole distribution. And as the price of ETH goes up, you'll end up collecting a whole bunch of ETH in the pool, and you won't be reselling it back down. So it'll stay in the pool, and you will have essentially dollar cost average bought ETH in that example, but that could be any token you want. So it creates some super interesting mechanisms for you to do buying. And I think one of the knocks, a lot of noobs when they come to AMMs and the LP, they're like, man, I really wish I had more ETH. Where did all the ETH go? Well, the ETH went up, and so you've sold it all, and now you have all dollars, and that surprises many people. So you're really making a bet when you LP in those sorts of pools that you have enough volume to justify kind of the impermanent loss that's happened. Here, Maverick V2 has this new knob where you can tune that more intentionally to make sure that you kind of get the distribution you want as an LP.
I think this is another example too where the future is we will rely on some builders who will build interesting strategies on Maverick V2, or maybe we even have AI agents that are picking out certain strategies there in the future. The idea, though, is that you're giving infrastructure that is trustless and permissionless and has more controls. So it just opens up a world of possibilities that you've called out there. And there's so much in Maverick V2 that becomes possible that I personally haven't thought of. Like, despite all the DeFi that I've used, I'm like, whoa, like those are new use cases. And that isn't a common thing that we run into. There's just a lot of forking and copy pasting. So I really feel like there's opportunity here to start building new and interesting sorts of incentives and use cases. But guys, I think this is a great place for us to wrap up. So I want to remind our listeners that if they're excited about what they learned here today with Maverick V2, they should learn more at Mav.XYZ. They should follow Mav Protocol on Twitter for updates for when Mav V2 goes live. They should follow Bob_Baxley for Bob's updates as well. And then, Bob, thank you so much for speaking with us. Really exciting again, just to learn what's coming. Could you close us out, though, with if you were to give a TLDR on how does Maverick V2 fit into the broader DeFi ecosystem? Maybe what's the TLDR on the impact you're expecting once it goes live? And then, of course, can you give us an estimated time for when Maverick V2 will go live?
So I think the TLDR is the liquidity operating system, like you said. We just keep adding knobs to DEXs to make them closer to order books, but able to operate on chain. And then we keep building out this infrastructure on top of it, on top of the DEX, lets people and protocols manage their liquidity. I think that's super important as chains proliferate. So all these new chains need DEXs, they need this on-chain mechanisms to let new protocols launch in their chain. And so I think Maverick can be there for those folks. We'll see about the launch. Plan is sometime in June. And like you said, follow the socials to get more info.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And for future episodes of the Edge podcast, please check out our link tree at edge_pod.